Kane. I'm from Australia. Welcome to my home. Please come in. This is my wife, Rinny Kane.
Hello.
Welcome to Mixed Marriage. Greg Kane. I'm from Australia, originally born in Sydney. I finished my school in Perth, and my profession is remote site and offshore catering services, camp and catering services. I first started in Australia in the remote mining communities in Australia, and in 1991 I was given the opportunity to be transferred to Indonesia, and I first come to Indonesia in September 1991, and my first area of work was in Sangatta, East Kalimantan. Basically, my career was spent in Kalimantan when I was working physically in the remote site, and in 2012 I transferred to Jakarta. I think it was very exciting for me because it was in 1991, the area of the mine site I was working was just being developed. So it was still very much a virgin jungle, native jungle. From the camp we could see live orangutan with the local Dayak community. We actually work quite closely. We take employee also from that area. I think their culture was quite interesting. It was different to anything I experienced in Australia for sure. But to be honest, it inspired curiosity, and it was interesting rather than being something that I had any concern over. I think the biggest challenge perhaps for me was the language. Obviously I couldn't speak Bahasa, and at that time I used to have to look after maybe 300-400 employees, so it was very challenging, and thankfully some of my team could speak English very well. But to be honest, sometimes it was a handicap also because it did not make me have to learn the language. But overall, it was a very good experience for me to experience totally different culture, totally different environment. So when I first got appointed or assigned to come to Indonesia, I told my family, my mother and father, that I was going to Kalimantan via Balikpapan. And as it turns out, my father was in the Navy in the Second World War, and one of the places he saw action was in Balikpapan. So he told me quite a bit about the process that he was part of the crew of the landing craft, landed the troops in Balikpapan. Then after that they went on to the Philippines and then eventually up to Japan after the atomic bomb. Maybe 20 years later, after my father had passed, I used to attend and sponsor some sausages, etc. for an Australian rules football junior team in Balikpapan. And as part of the annual event, they have some memorabilia and things like that to auction. This was prepared by a friend of mine for the auction, and because I knew my father had fought in the war in Balikpapan, I was very interested to participate in the auction, and I finally was able to bid on this and be successful. So yeah, it's quite interesting for me. It's respect for our soldiers that fought in the Second World War. Obviously there's been a close relationship between Australia and Indonesia during that period, and yeah, so it sits in our house, in a private place, just to remember a bit of the history of Balikpapan. First time we meet up, we go to the area around Block M, because fact I'm staying near that area because when I first meet Rini, I'm not actually based full-time in Jakarta. I'm still working, traveling much on the remote side. And then we start going out for quite some time. Then I meet Rini's children, and then also I let my children know that I've met Rini, and then we do some traveling together. Some of the things we do, we went on the cruise to Phuket, then we go to Rini for work as an assignment to Los Angeles, where the head office for her company was. So we traveled to LA together, to Las Vegas together, and we come back. Then, after that, we decide that we will become a couple full-time with the view for marriage. But obviously, I need to get the approval from Rini's family, which was initially a little bit daunting for me, because Rini's mother is very strong in religion. So, and of course, I think Rini's brothers and sisters already sort of are okay with the plan for us, But I have to then do formally, what they call lamar, I have to do that, which caused me maybe for 2 weeks being a little bit nervous, because not only that, Rini's mother is a senior, so she's not young. So also I'm a bit worried about the language. Even though I can speak Bahasa, I'm still a little bit concerned, particularly with the translation of some of the around the marriage, in using the Indonesian term. But we do the traditional request for marriage. We go to the house, the Pak RT, Pak RW datang, and we take the cake and the fruit, and we sit. And we sit on the floor. And actually, Rini's mother is very good. She gives the blessing. Rini's eldest brother, because Rini's father has already passed away, her eldest brother gave the blessing. I think the big attraction for me, apart from Rini being beautiful, is that she was independent. She does not have expectation to rely on somebody else. She has her own career. I have a career which I'm very busy with as well at that time, so we understand that we both also have other family commitment. So I think that was positive. Also, the other thing, our age difference is not too distant. So my family in Australia are welcoming Rini. My children are welcoming Rini. Rini's children welcoming saya. Rini's family was welcoming me. So I think because my wife is always making sure that, to be honest, number one, she's always making sure that I eat. She's always making me what I like to eat, if she can, if we have the right ingredient in the house. She's always caring about that. She's always caring about my health, which is, and so I know when she tells me, you should not be drinking any alcohol, it's for my good. That's what I appreciate, because I know it's because she cares and loves me. Also, the fact that, she is always thinking about other people. So always making sure that, not too soft, but always thinking that, her mother is okay, her family is okay, I'm okay. I think maybe she thinks about other people more than she thinks about herself. I think actually sometimes jokingly, if Rini shows me some photo of her maybe at the end of high school or her when she first started working, I also say, how about if we met back then? But actually Rini, I think, is more realistic than me, because for sure maybe if we met back then, we still probably not be together, because obviously we're still a lot younger. we have not had the life experience. Maybe Rini is also much more influenced by her family. For sure, I'm also probably, when I'm younger and not understanding the culture, I'm probably also I would be intimidated by the culture. So, but I still, you're right, I still think if we met back then and we became a couple back then, it would be good as long as we both were able to face the challenges when you're younger. For sure, it's always different once you experience something and you make a mistake, you know not to make the mistake again. So in our case, I think from my side, I know I made some mistakes in my past. I understand also that, I understand a lot more about what you need to make the relationship work. When you're developing as an adult, you don't always, it's all new, so you may not always be successful. So I think, to be honest, although it's something I think about sometimes, I don't believe, I'm not 100% sure we would have still had a successful marriage. Whereas now, because we've both learnt things in our life, experienced things in our life, we understand each other. I think that, I think we're better now than we would have been if we had have met together for the first time. That's my opinion. Yeah, Rini, thank you, yeah. You've always been supporting, you put up with me. I love you a lot.
Thank you
and
so much.
Let's make sure that in the near future we can take the time to go and enjoy some travel and our time together, yeah? Yeah? Thing which is a hobby of Rini is lovebirds and birds in general. So I decided to build this walk-through aviary for her. And we have lovebirds, also an owl. Thank you, sweetheart. This is my lunch, roast chicken and vegetables, which is one of my favourite. I have pumpkin, broccoli and cauliflower with some nice roast chicken. This is our youngest daughter, Claudia. She's also joining us for lunch. I think she's having bihun. And of course, my darling wife, Rini. Thank you, sweetheart. Ayo, mari makan. I also have sambal, which is good. Sambal bu Rini. I think it's very diversified and very rich in traditional preparation and culture with the food. I enjoy it. There's not too many Indonesian dishes I don't enjoy. I think I have some favorites. I have others I don't like. But in general, particularly with my job, I have been exposed to most all of the food from across Indonesia. And I enjoy it in general. I have more than one favorite. Of course, probably the traditional favorite for any foreigner is rendang, but I also like rica-rica, ayam rica-rica or ikan rica-rica. Also udang balado, empal, with the vegetables, for sure, gado-gado. My least favorite food, I think I mentioned before, is I can't stand tahu. Doesn't matter how it's cooked, I don't like it. Salted fish, I have eaten, but not to. It's not very popular with me. I hate durian. I've tried durian a few times. Sometimes I've had to meet in different villages with the village head, and of course, if they give it to you, to be polite, you must eat. But it's not my favorite. And some of the offal, meaning like paru or hatinya, I'm not so keen on either. But everything else, my favorites I've mentioned, the others are okay, I can eat. Soto ayam, I can eat. I wouldn't go to the restaurant and order it, but if I'm at some wedding or even at work, if that's what's on the menu, I will eat.
my husband if for the breakfast or lunch or dinner, always Western, not the Indonesia food, but always with the sambal burili, and then vegetable, and then sometimes he want eat the peanut sauce with the roast chicken and then vegetable, like that.
One of the things I'm doing to try and keep my weight down and improve my health is to try and do at least 10,000 steps a day, mostly around the house and the front yard. During my rest period, if I work from home, maybe the coffee break, instead of the coffee break, taking the steps, lunchtime, taking the steps, and whatever minimum steps I have left, because my target is 10,000 steps per day, I try and do, maybe after 5 o'clock. So 50% during the day, 50% after 5 o'clock. Another thing which is a hobby of Rini is lovebirds and birds in general. So I decided to build this walk-through aviary for her. And we have lovebirds, also an owl, but he only comes out at night time, which we feed him live crickets. The lovebirds have been breeding, and we have started off with maybe 6, and I can't count how many we have now, but come through and have a look at the aviary. The aviary has 2 doors, so the birds can't escape if one door is left open. Please come through. So these cages are actually the breeding boxes, so once they start breeding, we shut the cages and leave them together, and then once they have the egg, we also leave them together until the babies are born. And once the babies are old enough and they don't need to be fed by the parents, then we slowly let them out. As you can see, there is quite a lot. Unfortunately, the owl should only come out at night time, but I think he's a bit anxious because of all the action that's happening here. So these are actually Rini's babies. Her pet project. She loves birds. She's usually always out here feeding them. The owl she feeds every evening once it gets dark with the live cricket, which we keep in this box here. Starting with, not really. The first bird was the owl, because she sort of wanted an owl, and maybe when you saw upstairs she has little statues of owls. But then a couple of lovebirds she got, and then even standing out the back, myself sitting having a cup of coffee. One day, one lovebird came, and actually we get him to come inside the house. And then from that, Rini decided instead of keeping him in the cages, we should make a portable aviary. But I tell her maybe we should build something like this where you can walk through from one side to the other with the double doors. So they have more room to fly, and it's better for them, better for her to be able to enjoy. That's pretty much the story. And then, of course, somebody who could, as the pandemic started, there was somebody who could no longer look after the cockatoo, so they gave him to us. And he's, I think, maybe been inside, but he's part of the family. He's almost one of the children. So, but her hobby is birds. Yeah. Marry quickly and then discover that there's some aspects of the culture or the family expectations that you do not accept. Will only be, it will cause a bigger problem and a huge challenge. Some marriages survive the challenge, some do not. So my recommendation is what I would say on the other part of the question, what I would say for anyone coming to Indonesia and comes in a relationship and decides they want to get married, there are a couple of points. You really have to understand the family's expectations, and they're just like anywhere else in the world. Everyone is different. Every family is different. The expectations are different. Some are steeply immersed in the cultural, religious aspect. Some are in the cultural society aspect. So you cannot marry higher or below, etc. And then there are just the normal in the middle type of people. For me, I would recommend that you don't rush into it. You understand what the big picture means. you marry quickly and then discover that there's some aspects of the culture or the family expectations that you do not accept, will only be, it will cause a bigger problem and a huge challenge. Some marriages survive the challenge, some do not. So my recommendation is to make sure you understand not just the person you're going to be with, but what your responsibility will be and what the expectation will be once you are married and you become part of the family. And also be clear at the beginning what the boundaries are. If, for instance, the expectation is that you will be able to financially support a large family, extended family, meaning that, you know, the brother, sister, etc. But you, in reality, you cannot because you don't have the financial means. It's better to say that up front, to explain that, yeah, look, I'm just a normal person. I'm able to afford to look after my wife and children, but they come first, and I will do what I can, but I can't promise that I will look after a large extended family. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that has to be considered. It's not something which is normal in Australia for a family, two people to get married and then have to be expected to look after the extended family. It happens, yeah, for sure. Every culture, we help our family, but just believe it should be clear and at the beginning of the relationship rather than after you get married and then there's problems. Mixed marriage can be challenging.
But fun.
Go for it. Bye.